was the highest scoring batsman in the recent World Cup, yet just a year before that he was dropped from the side. His teammates called him Jammy, the West Indians called him the Wall. Girls say he's cute and admin say he sells. But what is this cricketer actually like? And how does he live with his fame? Let's see if he tells us as we talk with Rahul Dravid. Rahul, in 1997-98 you were dropped from the one-day side, and yet this time you ended up the highest scoring batsman in the World Cup. Did you surprise yourself, or did you actually think this was going to happen?
I always had a bit of confidence in my ability. I knew that, when I get to England, the kind of conditions would suit me. And I always backed myself to do well. But to end up as the highest scorer in the World Cup, I think I did surprise myself there. Because with the kind of names that were there in the World Cup, people like the Tendulkars and the Wars and, the Laras and stuff, to be honest, I didn't back myself to be the top scorer in the World Cup. I always thought I'd do well, I always backed myself to do well, and you go out there, you're pretty confident that, try and do well. But to be the highest scorer, I did surprise myself.
So do you feel vindicated? Do you feel that you've actually won a personal challenge?
No, not really. I'm not, I was never there to try and win any personal battles with anyone. It's just, I think, internally it's something that I feel I have accomplished, It's proved a point basically to myself, that, I can play both forms of the game. And it's something I've always wanted to do, succeed in both forms of the game. So it's not that I'm trying to, prove to the whole world or anything. It was always about proving to myself and, trying to achieve what the goals and the targets that I set for myself.
Okay, you were born in Indore into a Maharashtrian family. You grew up in South India and you were educated by Catholic priests. That's a pretty cosmopolitan background, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very strange actually. I mean, my mother's family was from Indore, so she'd just gone there for the delivery. But I've basically been brought up in Bangalore and studied at St. Joseph's Boys High School. So yeah, it's been quite, and we're Maharashtrian, so yeah, it's pretty cosmopolitan.
You're sort of pan-Indian in yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, you could say that, yeah.
Your mother's an architect and a painter, your father's a company executive. It's, I take it, a comfortable middle-class family?
Yeah, it was. I think a typical Indian middle-class family, very, pretty comfortable growing up. There was, I don't think we had too much or we ever wanted for anything, both me and my brother. And nor were there too many chauffeurs and cars and stuff around as well.
They're just the four of you. Are you a very closed family?
Very, very close-knit family, actually. It's just the four of us, and I think get along fantastically together. I think it's always been that way. We've been very close-knit. Things like even, we normally always had dinner together in the evening. Whatever happened, everyone would then come for dinner. Even now, when I'm in Bangalore and if I'm having dinner at home, I always make sure that I'm at home for dinner, and we always sit around the dinner table and talk about it. And I'm pretty close to my brother as well, so yeah, it's a very close-knit family, and I think that's the way my parents brought us up, really.
And you're personally determined to keep these bonds despite all the pressures of cricket and celebrityhood?
Very much, I think family has been very important to me. It is very important to me. I think that's it's a place where you can take the pressure away from the game, away from your game. I think it's very important to have a good family background and a good base, because when you're playing cricket, it's a lot of pressure. You're always on the media spotlight. One place where you can really be yourself away from the public glare, so to speak, is your family. They know you. They know everything about you, really. You can't lie to them, or you can't put up a face to them.
And they understand and forgive.
Oh yeah, I think so. They're fantastic, and it's not like there's been too much cricket in the family as well. In terms of cricket's never really discussed at home very much, and the fact that my parents don't really, they know that, after I come back from a tour, the last thing I want to discuss with them is cricket or technique or whatever.
And your brother, is he overawed by his elder brother, by the celebrityhood?
Not at all. I mean, he never took up cricket, so he never really took up cricket seriously, so that really shows he was never really overawed. Obviously, I think, he's had me as an elder brother, and maybe a little bit, in terms of the fact that all the attention is, in terms of the public, has gone to me and stuff. But I think he has a career of his own, and he's doing pretty well for himself.
Okay, you began playing cricket, I gathered, at the age of 12. At that age, was it just another game, or were you already beginning to think of it as a possible career?
I mean, when you're growing up, when you're really young and people ask you, and in school, teachers, when you're in school, they ask you, what do you want to become? It's a very common question. And you say, some people say a pilot, and some people will say, whatever, maybe doctor or engineer or something. And I always stood up and said cricketer. I don't know, from a very young age, I always wanted to be a cricketer. But then obviously when you start playing and when you see the situation, in the end you just love the game. You play it because you love the game and you just want to play it. I mean, you can't explain why you play it. You just go out there, all your friends are playing it, and you just want to play cricket. And I think it just builds from there. You don't think of it as a career initially. You just play it. Then you realize that, yeah, I'm pretty good at this. Yeah, maybe I can, maybe I can do something with this. I should.
So the enjoyment leads to the realization that you can play it professionally, and then comes the dedication.
Very true. I think it has to start with enjoyment. It has to start with a love for the game. A lot of kids, a lot of parents come to me today and say, how do I make my son a cricketer? And I tell them, you can never make your son a cricketer. You just got to become one.
Cricketers are born, or do they become one?
I think it's a combination. They have to love the game themselves. They have to start themselves. And then you've got to give them the right guidance, put them in the right place, and obviously see to it that they are looked after and given the right coaching and stuff. But in the beginning, the love must come from the child itself. You can't take your child to a cricket field and then see that he's not enjoying it, and then force him to go there. If your kid doesn't want to go for a net practice session, or he doesn't want to go out and play a cricket match, and I see a lot of parents taking their sons there, saying, thinking they're doing him a favor. I think that's wrong. You've got to want the kid should actually be. I remember when I was, say, in school, I couldn't sleep the night before school matches, or because there's a match coming up next day. I wouldn't be sleeping. It was a school match. You're just dying to get out there and play. That's what has to happen, and that's inborn. And I think most cricketers, you talk to all your colleagues in the national side, and everyone has stories to tell you like that, where they just wanted to get onto the cricket field and just play cricket for the sheer love of it.
Okay, clearly you had the fire in you, but how much of the discipline that is essential to make a great cricketer came from your parents?
Quite a bit of it. I think my parents were never strict, to be frank. It was never like, do this, do that, this is what you must do. And never,
But in the early years, did they insist that you had to go to school? Cricket came second?
Oh yeah, I think so. Obviously, cricket was always second for my parents, in the sense that, you come from a middle-class background, and you know how risky cricket can be in India. If you're not in the cream of international cricket, then there's no career really in cricket in this country. So my parents obviously wanted me to study and, take up a professional course and stuff like that. But then they also realized that I had some talent in this game, and I could maybe, play at a high level. So they said that, obviously when I was growing up in school and stuff, there was like an unwritten rule at home that I had to produce a certain level of marks to be able to play cricket. Otherwise, I'm sure my parents would have just stopped me from playing cricket. They would have said, no, you better concentrate on your studies.
It was a sort of unwritten deal? You do well at school, you can play cricket.
Yeah.
You don't do well at school, no cricket.
Definitely. That was an unwritten rule. There was no doubt. It was clear in my mind that every time I knew that there was exams coming up, I had to really get down there and study very hard. And a lot of support from school as well. I think my school, the principal and stuff.
So tell me, what did this mean for the young Rahul Dravid? You were under pressure to do well at school from your parents. You were under pressure from yourself to perform on the cricket field. So did this mean that the things that teenagers like doing, movies, dates, hijinks, you missed out on?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you then make a choice. It's not, I wouldn't call it pressure. You just start enjoying what you do. You want to play cricket, and you also realize after some time that, studies are important. They're very important, and you need to have a basic education, and you want that for yourself as well.
But when you missed out on the fun things of life, it didn't really matter to you because cricket was so much more important.
Yeah, it was so much more important. I remember, all my friends would go out to the movies or go out and party and stuff, and I'd be, busy practicing or making up on homework, or, if we'd gone on an under 15 tour, there's so much of notes to copy back and stuff, and I had to do all that and had not much time to party. But I never really felt that I was deprived of anything. You never felt that, oh, shucks, man, I should actually be with my friends. I never felt that. I was always more happy to be on a cricket field, and the joy and enjoyment I got out of playing that really compensated for anything that I missed out anywhere else.
Well, tell me this, what does cricket mean to Rahul Dravid today?
There's a nice T-shirt that I saw one of the Australian producers have on one of our things, and I borrowed it from him and said, cricket is life, and in small print it says the rest is mere details. It's I think that's what it's about. I think it's really cricket has been life for so many years now for me, and it continues to be so.
You think cricket is the reason for your existence?
It's a hard question. I don't know. At the moment, yes. I think over the next few years and for the last few years, yeah, I think it's the most important thing in my life. It's everything that I live for, and it's everything that it's the main thing that occupies my mind. But I don't know, it's the only reason why I'm here. Obviously, your priorities change as your time goes on, and
how much of every day is taken up by cricket, and what's left for the rest?
Most of your time, and the amount of international cricket we are playing, most of the time is taken up for either practice, cricket. You're either then thinking about the games that are coming up, then there's, I read a bit of books on cricket and stuff. So most of your day is taken up for cricket, and then there is time, you have to take time off from that to then do other things, because too much of it will then obviously make you stale. So then you maybe read other books, listen to music, go out with friends a bit. But yeah, but I think 80% of your time is cricket, really.
Okay, we've led up to the point where the audience actually want to hear us talk a little bit about your cricket itself. We know that it, in fact, is life for you. Let's take a break and come back in part 2 and talk about how Rahul Dravid regards his actual cricket. Don't go away. We'll be back in just a couple of moments. Welcome back to Face to Face. My guest is Rahul Dravid. Rahul, you've had quite a roller coaster of a career. You've had dramatic highs and you've had pretty depressing lows. How do you handle those?
I think you learn to handle that over time, over experience. I think you just, even when you're growing up, you face these highs and lows. Even right from the day you hold up a cricket bat, there are days where you'll do exceptionally well and there are days where you'll do badly. So I think the learning process starts when you're pretty young. You'll realize that there is going to be some very good days, going to be some very bad days. And with experience and with, and if you've got a sane head and got some people to give you a good piece of advice, you realize that this is how the game is going to be.
This is where the family becomes very important?
Very important. I think, you know, how they treat you when you fail and how they treat you when you succeed is very important. You know, obviously a family they're not worried about whether you're going to be a successful cricketer or not. I mean, in the end, you know,
but
they
keep the emotional balance going.
Very true. I mean, my parents I've never, even in a school match, I've never had I've never had to come back home and listen to, oh, how did you play that shot? Why did you get off a zero? Never. I mean, he never even talked to me about it, or if I came with good runs, he'd say, oh, well done, that was great, superb. If I didn't do well, oh, bad luck, never mind, you know, there's always another day. So I guess it starts from there.
It always helps if the family doesn't think that cricket is the end of life.
Yeah, that's true. For them, it's never been. It's never been the end of life for them, and you know, it's very helpful.
Okay, let me ask you a little about some of these dramatic highs and depressing lows. You had a dream start. You scored a double century in the under-15s in the Pattabhi Raman Trophy. You scored 3 centuries in your first 4 appearances in the Ranji Trophy. You captained India in the under-19s against Australia, scoring a century and a couple of 50s. I mean, you couldn't have had a better start.
That's true. I was very lucky to start well in Ranji Trophy. And it's very important to start well in Ranji Trophy. I started when I was pretty young, just at the end of my, say, 12th standard. I was into the Ranji Trophy side and started very well. And that really helps, because when you start well in Ranji Trophy, then you're not trying to just keep your place in the Ranji Trophy side. Then you can look ahead. Because most of the time, if you're not doing well initially in Ranji Trophy, you're worried about your place in your Ranji side as well. But here I was, you know, I started very well. I was lucky to start well. And
so the base was secure.
The base was secure. You knew that, fine, I'm going to have a decent run in Ranji Trophy cricket. Now I should look ahead. You know, then immediately your ambitions at a young age are focused ahead. But if you're all the time worried about whether I'll keep my place in the Ranji side and, you know, what's going to happen, our next match, then you lose the bigger picture, really. You start worrying about the smaller pictures here. And I was lucky in that sense. I started well, so then I could really look at the bigger picture and look at, say, India.
But when you got a chance to get into the bigger picture and you made your debut in the Indian side, you really had quite a depressing start, didn't you?
Yeah.
You scored 20-odd runs in your first 4. What went wrong? Was it nerves? Was it inexperience?
Combination of everything, I think. It wasn't that I batted badly. It was just that, you know, when I started, I played a couple of one-day games, and, you know, it wasn't that I was in there for 25 balls or 30 balls to say that, you know, he's batting badly. I was getting out in the first 5 balls, and I flicked one down the leg side of Murli in my first game. Normal, you're pretty unlucky when you get down if you're flicking down the leg side. If you get out, you consider yourself unlucky most occasions. I got run out in one game. So yeah, I mean, you know, initially it was a bit, you know, a bit unnervy. You wonder, shucks, man, what's happening? Am I going to be successful at this level?
Was it hard to keep your confidence going?
A little bit. I mean, I was worried whether I'd get selected for that England tour. I knew that if I got selected for the England tour, then there'd be a good opportunity for me, because the advantage of being selected at an England tour is that you have a lot of side games and a lot of matches, so you can then build on a good performance and then force your way into the test side.
And not only did you get selected for the England tour, you came very, very close to greatness with your debut in the test. But again, at 95, 5 wickets short of a century, you gave a catch. Did that hurt?
It did hurt, obviously. I mean, if I had got those 5 runs, it would obviously have created a world record, because Saurabh had got a century on debut, and no 2 cricketers in the history of the game from the same team have made 100. The Pakistanis did it after that. But yeah, it hurt a bit. But then you've got to also think that, you know, you couldn't have asked for a better start in international cricket. 95 runs. People would have given their right arm to start with 95. So I didn't, you know, crib too much about it.
And there was an upside to that, wasn't there? I mean, I'm interrupting you, but there was an upside, because I don't want you to be modest about it. You gave a catch, but it's said that in fact you didn't wait for Dickie Bird to give you out, you decided to walk off yourself. Did you do that deliberately?
I mean, it just happened. It happens instinctively, and it was a big nick. I mean, it was a loud nick, and it was. I mean, 'cause everyone could have heard it in the ground. So it was. There's no point waiting. He's.
You weren't consciously saying, "Look, I'm going to set an example. Cricket is part of gentlemanly ethics, and I'm walking off. I don't need to be told you're out."
No, I was not. Definitely not trying to do that.
Yeah? Will you do it today if it happens again?
No, I mean, I'm a firm believer that cricket evens itself out in the end. Even my short career, I've had the experience of it evening itself out. There are a lot of times where you'll be given out. Where you feel you've been hard done by, and replays and situations will show that, yeah, you were hard done by. Other occasions where you're lucky and you feel, yeah, maybe I had luck going my way. So you just let the umpire do his job. I mean, he's the man to do the job. And
never question an umpire.
Never question umpire. I mean, you feel disappointed when you get not given out, when you're given out for, say, a wrong decision. But in the end of the day, you realize that this thing evens itself out, and you've got to take the good with the bad. But no, I don't consciously walk anymore. I just wait for him to give it out.
That's a lesson you've learned from that occasion.
Very true. Yeah, not from that occasion, just from international cricket and everything. That
just in case he doesn't give you out.
Yeah, stand in there and get those 5 runs.
But in fact, you're right. Things do even out, because after England, you had quite a dream run in South Africa, and you had a very good series in the West Indies. And yet, when you came back to India, they dropped you from the side, from the one-day side.
Yeah, not immediately. I toured Sri Lanka after that. Had a decent series in Sri Lanka, and yeah, I was. In and out for about a year, and which was a bit disappointing. But yeah, but these are things that I guess it was part of the learning curve.
Now, when you're down and out like that, what does a great cricketer have to say to himself to keep his spirit going, to keep his practice going, so that one day he gets back? I mean, is the challenge difficult at that stage?
I think it's your ability to maintain your motivation and your enthusiasm in your. Everyone can be enthusiastic and motivated when he's doing well. I think it's important to be as enthusiastic or even more enthusiastic and motivated when you're in the dumps and when you need to come out of a slump like I was in. I think you've just got to dig deep somewhere and find the resources, find the strength, and just work much harder, and just be in a position where people then have to pick you, and they have to recognize your ability.
So failure is the real test of character.
It is. I mean, undoubtedly it is. I mean, failure never keeps a good man down. I mean, adversity just shows you whether a man can then come through that situation, because obviously you've got to have a bit, confidence in your own ability. You've got to want it. There's this desire in the end that yeah, I mean, this is what I really want in life, and how do I then go about achieving it? Okay, I'm not really on that road at the moment. I'm somewhere on the wayside, but how do I get myself back on this main road? And what will it take?
Forgive me, I'm interrupting you. You're talking about confidence, and one of the things the audience is going to think about is quite often when Rahul's playing and he's at 85, 90, something goes wrong and he gets up before a century. Is it lack of confidence, lack of concentration, or bad luck?
I mean, I think got out a few times in the 90s, and I'm pretty disappointed about it. But I don't think it's lack of confidence or lack of thing. It's just something that's happened to me. It's not that a lot of times if I look back, I've seen tapes of those dismissals, and I've tried to go through what was going on in my mind just before those balls and stuff. Whether was I nervous and stuff, and that was not the case. It was just happening to me, and luckily it's behind me, because the last 4 times I've crossed 50 in Test cricket, I've got hundreds. So yeah, I think it's just behind me. It's just one of those phases. A lot of great cricketers have gone through this. I mean, someone like Stephen Waugh has close to 9 scores in the 90s. So it's just part of, I guess. Luckily, it's happened initially in my career.
These are things you just have to take in your stride.
Yeah, it just happens. I guess someone bowls you a good ball, or you play a poor shot in the 90s.
Okay, off the field, when you're not thinking about cricket, during those 15% of the times when cricket doesn't dominate you, how does Rahul Dravid relax?
I like reading, so I read a hell of a lot. I think reading really takes my mind away from cricket, and then you can just go into a totally different.
What sort of things do you read?
I read all kinds of books. Really, I read a lot of cricket books. A lot of autobiographies, and really anything I can get my hand on. If it's autobiographies of great people.
Is it true that when you're touring, for instance, in Toronto, that you in fact take off time to go to the theatre?
I enjoy watching the theatre. I think it's really fantastic, the musicals and the way they produce it and stuff. So I always try and get a chance. I always like to go off and see one of them, because it's really relaxing, and I find that it gives me a lot of joy and pleasure.
What about the other side? Are you a shy person?
Yeah, very. I think quite shy, quite introverted, especially growing up and stuff. I think I've grown a bit as a person over the 3 years in international cricket. But yeah, pretty shy.
So in the beginning, it used to be difficult to talk about yourself.
It used to be. I mean, it still is sometimes.
You're doing it very well today. Yeah. How do you handle the adulation that you get?
You get used to it, I guess. It's just, you realize that it's, if you sit back and think about it, and you realize it's just that the game that's the most popular thing. It's, cricket's so popular and you just happen to be the rage at the time, or you're successful at the time. If you just look back and say, there have a lot of been cricketers before me who've been the same, and, who've been the stars of the moment. And,
you're not seriously saying that the girls care about the cricketer and not about Rahul Dravid?
It's just that it's transitory. I mean, today they maybe care about me in say 6 months' time or a year's time. There'll be somebody else on the block. It's somebody else coming up. So it's just a phase. You go through that. You're young, and obviously.
You sound a little as if you don't really like being chased by all these girls.
It's not that I don't like being chased or anything, but it's something that's not very important to me, or it's not the most important thing. It's not what I play for. And it comes with the territory, and I've got to learn how to deal with it.
And do you protect yourself and your family from this sort of adulation? I mean, do you draw barriers and say there is a world inside the doors of my house which is not for the world outside?
I try to. I try as much as possible to keep my family away from this and away from the press and the hype. But it's not very easy, because obviously then the press and everybody wants to know a lot about you, and especially in India with cricket being the #1 sport. It's not very easy, but yeah, I try to, as far as possible. I just try and keep private life totally away from the cricket.
But do you also accept that to be a successful cricketer, there is a certain invasion of your privacy that is not just inevitable, but perhaps even essential?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's obviously, because if you are a public figure, then a certain amount of invasion of your privacy then just happens, and it's something you have to deal with. And I guess people then want to know more about the game, and in the end maybe it helps make the game more popular, which is very important, and which is what we'd all like to see. But as long as it doesn't get too personal, then it's fine, really.
Okay, what about your nicknames? How do you like being called Jammy by the team?
I've been called it for so long, and I don't mind it really. It's something I've been called from a young age, so it's just stuck on.
And what about the wall?
It's quite complimentary sometimes, though I think in one-day cricket is not the right one. but yeah, it's just, it happens, and nicknames come and they go and stuff.
And my last question, I know you don't want me to ask you this, is marriage something you're considering?
Not for the next couple of years. I think cricket's obviously in my mind, so maybe for the next year or a year and a half.
So all the girls listening to this can now assume that they still have a good chance.
I don't know. It's not something that's not occupying my mind at the moment.
Rahul Dravid, good luck, and thank you very much for talking to us.
Thanks, Karan. Thank you.